Hello, welcome to the Honest Heresy. Honest Heresy. I'm gonna make a stinger. I'm gonna get a stinger made, so I don't have to say it every time. Anyway, hello. We're gonna be looking at weapons. We're gonna be looking at weapons and the new weapon stats in the Age of Darkness. So very exciting. Now, if you watched the box video, we talked about what's inside the box. Importantly, there's a bunch of new disintegrator weapons. So a new weapon type, or maybe they've already existed, I don't know. But a bunch of new disintegrator weapons are going to be inside of the launch box. So hopefully these don't just get like a massive power creep compared to like other weapons. You know, your classic plasma. But, you know, the Horus Heresy team and SDS have had a long history of introducing all sorts of esoteric weapons like Volkites, as an example, and grav weapons and stuff like that. So I think those have all, and they may have been in 40k as well. I don't care. I don't want to cross-reference, but let me know. You can let me know in the comments. We can cross-reference together, okay? Right, so investigating the weapons. There are some seriously dangerous weapons on the battlefields of the Age of Darkness. Lethal wonders of mankind's golden age have been unearthed as the Imperium has only just begun to slowly slide into an inexorable entropy. Whew. Some of these still work properly. So there we go. So here's a bunch of classic weapons you've got there. You've got a plasma pistol. You've got a Volkite gun on the left. You do have a las gun. You have a heavy bolter, a thunder hammer, and a chainsaw. Look at me. I think one of the interesting things, again, when we talked about expanded stats, when we talked about that in the future, in the past, in the previous video, is when you get weapons that have very unique job roles, like a las cannon as an example. Its job is to take out heavily armored stuff, versus a bolter to take down, you know, a bunch of maybe not even other Marines, but to take out a bunch of like infantry. Once you start to dedicate job roles to different weapons, that really opens up the weapons being good and bad. Like, and sometimes weapons can be useless because, you know, a las gun might be really good for taking out a vehicle, but you've given a unit the opportunity to make plasma so good that it's a better or more efficient choice. Whether it's more efficient because of points, more efficient because of survivability, more efficient because of output. Either way, you put yourself in a position where maybe some weapons become useless, but also you do give an identity and a uniqueness to every type of weapon, which is actually really, really good in that kind of rules expressiveness that we really, really want from game design, or at least I want from it, because it's cool. Also, you just get to be like, I'm firing my plasma pistol, and you blow your own guy's arm off, which is very funny. Right, the new edition of Warhammer, the Horus Heresy, has given every weapon in the game a new profile, incorporating new stats and abilities. Many of these will look very familiar, but there is more granularity and utility on the more exotic weapons, while range weapons and melee weapons have slightly different stats. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is a bolter. So we're looking at a bolter profile here. We can see it's got an R, FP, RS, AP, D. It's got no special rules, and it's got a trait of bolt. Hold on, let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, so bolt weapons are a perfect example of how new weapon profiles function on a familiar range weapon. The range is measured in inches always, so it's 24-inch range. Perfect. Firepower, how many shots a gun gets per activation. So this previously would have been like attacks. So it's 24-inch range, and it's got 2 shots. It's got its range strength. This stat used to be called strength. This is a subtle change that allows special rules to apply to modifiers according to a source. This is quite interesting. Plus 2 to your range strength is very different to +2 to your melee strength. I think that's great. Again, breaking those apart is really healthy because it means that you can intentionally give a buff to X weapon or X unit in X way, and then break it out from the other. I'm sure I don't need to explain that to you, but like, that's good. It does also mean that you have to cross-reference stuff, right? Oh, I'm adding plus strength to the unit. Cool. Is it range strength or melee strength? Oh, I didn't check. So, you know, there's opportunity to, it's more complicated for sure. Armor penetration. This works as it did before. For those who are unfamiliar, any unit whose armor save is equal to or worse than a weapon's AP won't get a save. A bolter, for instance, will tear through text rules, but Space Marines retain their 3+ save. Now, this is maybe a big womp-womp for me. I'm not really sure. I do really like the AP and armor save conversation. I like something to have a 3-up armor save, and I hit it with an AP 5 weapon. An AP 2 weapon, and it goes up to a 5-up save. I like that. I think that's a really good way of kind of designing, because you still get to roll some saves, and you still get to roll some dice. Just having a unit be like, cool, well, you'll get 0 saves from this, does really mean that like I will always pick the stuff that's always going to deal with your 2-up armor saves, because it also deals with your 3-up armor saves and deals with all my other armor saves. So it immediately pushes how effective a weapon can be. Now, that's also true that like if you have something with kind of marginally okay AP and lots of shots in the other system where it's like AP2 as an example, then you'll take that because you're going to change the math from a 3-up to a 5-up. That's enough, depending. So, but it really, it just means AP2 is really good. But we can come to that, and we can deal with that. And then damage. This is a new stat for Age of Darkness, which should be familiar to players of other Warhammer systems. It shows how many wounds or hull points you strip from the target. Again, I think that's really good because it allows you to differentiate what a weapon does. It's damage D3, or it's damage 2, or it's damage D3 plus 1, or whatever it might be. You can do some like funky, fun stats there. That's a real positive in my opinion. Now, no special rules on this particular one. Bolters always have 2 shots rather than only when in half range. This makes tactical squads more useful, much more useful mid-range threat, especially as Fury of the Legion rule still exists. A squad of 20 Astartes can fire 60 shots across the battlefield. So that's a lot of shots, 60 shots that are going to be range strength 4. So our tech thralls are going to get mowed down as an example, but maybe not that good into Ogryns. Bolters now always have, heavy bolters meanwhile benefit from the new rule, heavy FP. Heavy FP. So that's going to be firepower, heavy firepower. The heavy rule grants a weapon bonus to another stat if the bearer hasn't moved. In this instance, it's firepower. So a Space Marine who stands and shoots with a heavy bolter gets 4 shots or 3 when he's moved. Okay, so heavy FP there. So it's going to add to our shots. Heavy FP. It's going to add to our shots, our firepower. Interesting. Heavy X. Weapons with the Heavy X special rule gain +1 characteristic when stationary. Interesting. I wonder if you could end up with heavy like 2 or heavy 3. Like if you don't move, you get lots more shots. Okay. When making a shooting attack with a weapon that has Heavy X special rule, a modifier of +1 added to the characteristic of the model with that weapon is part of a unit that remains stationary in the controlling player's previous turn movement phase. If the characteristic listed is AP, then instead it improves the AP by 1 step. The value of X in the specific variant of Heavy X special rule determines which characteristic gains the +1 modifier. Oh, okay, so we're not going to get like +2s or +3s or +4s. It's either going to be heavy to how many shots you get, or heavy to your AP. Interesting. So this, if you don't move, you could, well, if this had heavy AP, then you could be AP3. Interesting. Okay. Cool. Other heavy weapons can receive bonuses to other stats. A las cannon fires no faster, but a stationary operator is able to be more precise, so it has heavy D. A stationary legionnaire armed with a las cannon could potentially kill a Terminator with each shot, but not a Saturnine Terminator who has 3 wounds. It's important to remember that you must buy the new Saturnine Terminators. Okay, so this is heavy D, so that's going to be our damage, so it becomes damage 2. Is that right? On a las cannon? Range strength is 9, AP is 2, and then it's got heavy D, so it's going to be damage 2, armor bane. Very interesting. Heavy D is also my nickname. Also, shout out to the Marine with a las cannon on his shoulder. It's so gangster. It's such a great version of Space Marines, which, like, you know, we've moved around from. They're much more heroic, they're much more Iron Man, they're much more just a dude holding what is effectively a turbo laser on his shoulder and just going wild. Is very, very funny. Melter guns are as devastating as ever and worse at close range. So Melter 6 grants armor bane within 6 inches and doubles damage to a mighty 6, enough to pop a predator taken in a single hit. So it's got Melter 6. So if you're in half range, so Melter is going to be if you're in half range, then you double the damage. And it tells you, well, it doesn't necessarily double the damage. It tells you what it goes up to. So your Melter gun goes from damage 3 up to damage 6. Nice. And it has the Melter keyword as well. I do like the concept also that because it's got the Melter trait, you can have like an anti-Melter like rule. You know, you've got some ablative armor, or you've got some sort of special armor, or special psychic power or something that, you know, nullifies the effect of a Melter weapon. By everything having a special rule and a keyword, you're able to do that, which is quite funky. Not every target will die so easily. Most tanks have hull points have more hull points than they did in this last edition to compensate for the fact that some guns are better at causing damage, while some units, Primarchs in particular, have Eternal Warrior X, reducing the number of wounds they take for each hit. We, of course, need to look at the disintegrator weapons, as you're not about to see far more in these battles thanks to the Saturnine box set. So this is a disintegrator weapon. So it's 24-inch range. You shoot one shot. It's range strength 4. It's AP 3, so it's great against other Marines, and it's damage 2, so it's also great against Marines and maybe like other wound 2 stuff. Okay, these are high risk, high reward weapons. Overload 1 means that any rolls of a 1 to hit the target your own squad, but in return you get a gun that punches right through enemy power armor with enough force to stop a veteran legionary in his tracks. Wow. Okay, are Marines 2 wounds now? No, they're probably not 2 wounds. I've just, maybe there's a psychic power, maybe there's some sort of upgrade. We don't know right now, or I don't know right now at time of writing. And sure, they're probably still just 1 wound, but that's fun. So this is cool. Okay, let's take a moment to look at this. Means any rolls won't target your own unit. So it's basically just a plasma weapon. But I guess the trade-off is you obviously get to have an anti-marine unit, which in a game that's full of Marines, having an anti-marine unit is obviously pretty cool. But then you've got transport, you've got being able to bring stuff in from reserve. There's a bunch of ways to not necessarily just get shot. And also, if you're playing with a good amount of terrain and not the classic open battlefield of like your narrative home games, then you can reduce the effectiveness of shooting as well. It's quite interesting actually to take a moment to talk about this. Some of these rules, like obviously the Heresy has been an existing game for more than a decade now. But some of these rules being lifted from kind of a Necromunda sphere and having that conversation, I would be very hopeful that there's going to be some very comprehensive terrain rules in this game. Most of the games that Games Workshop produce, AOS and Old World as an example, AOS, sorry, and 40k, have started to get better terrain rules, but considering they're like on this 3-year cycle where they put as much stuff out as they can, and still the terrain rules can be a bit ropey, I don't have very high hopes, especially like Old World. They don't have very good terrain rules. They don't, and they especially don't have good terrain deployment rules. That's going to be a key factor for me. But that's something I personally am excited about. I have started to make a bunch of for Old World, I've started making a bunch of maps, which we either put free on. They're always free online. So if I do end up doing this for the Horus Heresy, they're free online, and normally we sell some cards and stuff as well. I think that'll be really fun. Design maps. Create like sectors and ideas for you to play either in your games at home, and also because I have a venue, I'll probably run events where I'll need to design maps, which I think is good. But either way, what I'm saying is terrain reducing the effectiveness of weapons like this. So, but this is very good. Anyway, melee weapons also have new stats. Like range weapons, they also have armor penetration and damage, but they also have 3 stats that modify the wielder's base stats. They have the initiative modifier, shows how quick the weapon to strike is. The heavier weapon, the slower it makes you in combat. That's great. I love that. Is this new? An initiative modifier to a melee weapon. That's fantastic. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Attacks modifier, some especially quick or paired weapons grant additional strikes. That makes sense. Strength modifier shows how much the weapon bolsters the strength of the wielder. Again, this lets you be very creative and unique with those weapon profiles, right? Like an axe, it can be very different to a sword, different to a lance, different to a shield. I love that. I think that's really good. Here's a look at how it works in the classic power weapon lineup. Oh, nice. So a power sword has an initiative modifier of 1. Its attack modifier, it doesn't add any attacks. So none of them add any attacks. Doesn't add any strength, but it's AP 3. So it's great for just chopping down a Marine, and it's damage 1. It's also got breaching 6 as well, which we haven't currently found out about yet. Then you got a power axe, which makes you slower, but it does give you +1 to your strength, basically, or to your strength. It's also AP 3, it's damage 1, and it's got a breaching on a 5-up. But then a power fist makes you very slow. Your initiative modifier down by 3. Your strength modifier is +4. It's AP 2 and it's damage 2, so it can punch through a Terminator or some Terminator armor or 2-up armor. That's great. That's good. Again, I really like how good these are. I think these are super effective. Very, very cool. Ultimately, also, as well, there's effective weapon profiles, and then there are cool weapon profiles. I think that's going to be a core element of definitely how I'm going to consider to play the Horus Heresy. I'm going to do a Salamander Legion, as an example, outside of my Solar Auxilia and my Mechanicus army. I am going to do a Salamander army, because Salamander's cool. Salamander's all day. but I already want, like a bunch of one weapon on a dude, like on a squad, right? Like, sure, like the disintegrate weapons we just looked at. If I can have a squad of 20 with them, I want them. But I also kind of want a group with like 20 OG bolters and 10 dudes with lasers and melters and flamers. I think that's one of the really exciting things about the Heresy, is that you can just build squads that have a theme that makes sense. Or that's what I always really liked about it. And I hope we continue to see that as well. So yeah, anyway. There are some tough choices in terms of the best way to get out your squads of characters. And also this is really cool as well, because you can just have your sergeant for a squad and he's got weapon X and weapon Y. And you got another sergeant that you paint and build. And sure, yes, I'm talking about giving Games Workshop loads of money and building lots of stuff and painting lots of stuff. But ultimately, you should be in the game for the game that you want to play. And I really don't think that you're getting open in this rule book. You're not going to be the 40K esports person. This is meant to be like fun games that you enjoy with your friends. And sure, you could even run tournaments, I'm sure of it. And I'm sure I'm going to get shouted at by someone in the Heresy community for saying you can run a tournament, but you can run a tournament, play the games. So you might pick the best stuff, but you might also pick the weirdest and coolest stuff, right? There are some tough choices in terms of the best way to get out your squads. Not every model has a fancy sword, of course, but everyone brings a basic weapon, so no one has to miss out. A basic close combat weapon. There are hundreds of weapons in the Age of Darkness. Hundreds of weapons! Yo, listen, we're going to do some tier lists. Best weapon to put on a sergeant. Best weapon to put on a console. Best weapon. Hundreds of weapons is insane. That is decision paralysis. That is going to be in the comments. What's the best weapon to put on my guy? I still don't know. I've been reading for 3 years. I don't know. Right? Full stats for each army can be found in their Liber book, much of which will be released alongside the Saturn box set. Wow, so it's all going to come out at the same time. That's bananas. I definitely don't think anybody is going to be able to break that down in any specific detail. They'll just do like a man who reads book. They'll just open it and read it out, right? So hopefully we'll do some videos on that and it'll be really fun. Anyway, I'm really excited about the weapons. Weapons now added on to, I mean, we haven't even seen like specific rules for how legions work, units work, other special rules. We haven't seen like the chassis, as in like the body and the special rules or USRs that the body gets. So I'm pumped about this. I went out and bought the melee weapon grade upset, the melee weapon upgrade set the other day. So, and I like opened it and I was like, ah! I was like, what do I even want on my dudes? I was like, I'm gonna get a spear. I don't even know. So it's really, really fun. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and I'll see you soon. Bye.